I'd like to welcome everybody to the Content, Context, and Culture panel. I understand we're going to get started here since we have a live stream going on and we don't want to keep the people at home working in their pajamas waiting for us. I'd also like to thank you for taking time out of your day and the beautiful weather outside and lunch to join me in this esteemed panel we have here. I'll give you a quick intro as to who we have all the way down at the end. Jeff Strawn, CEO and founder of Brand Synergy Group. Jeff basically focuses on integrating brands and music artists together, and you'll hear a little bit about the approach that Brand Synergy Group is taking in the industry and how music is playing a key role in the area of creating cultural context and, for that matter, branded content. To his right is Jeff Gibson, strategist global customer marketing at Facebook. Obviously, we're all very familiar with Facebook. By show of hands, how many of us have Facebook pages? That's just about everybody. You guys are doing well. And Jeff's focus is really providing compelling and relevant insights, branding, and business solutions to key marketers. So hopefully today, Jeff will give us some insight as to where Facebook is taking the brand and partnerships with brands and how close they are to reaching 1 billion Facebook users. I think you guys are fairly close, aren't you?
We're getting there.
Okay. To his right, we have Andrew Snyder, VP Content Solution Sales at Yahoo. Andrew leads their video, event, and content solution sales teams. And Yahoo, being probably one of the oldest brands out there in this space, has really evolved. And we'll hear more about where Yahoo is headed for some of their recent partnerships and announcements. And to his right, Jared Moses, President and CEO of United Entertainment Group. Jared and I have worked together over the years, and Jared has really been at the heart of this combination of Madison Avenue and Hollywood with relationships with Queen Latifah and others, and hopefully get some perspective on how talent plays into creating cultural context and branded content. So just to start off, gentlemen, we were talking earlier about this idea of data, and there's a lot of discussion around data. I think data is probably one thing that the industry at large here from a television standpoint doesn't heavily rely on in terms of its content development. They tend to believe that it's more about ideas than it is about truly understanding the consumer, and they let Nielsen measure on the back end the data of the home. How important is data on the front end right now in the development process of creative for consumers, and then even more importantly, transferring that into sort of this cultural meme that everybody's trying to get at?
So I'll take that. For us, it gives us an unfair advantage. We know what people are interested in. We know what they're reacting to. And at Yahoo, our programming process really starts by studying the data that's out there. What are people showing interest in? And once we can identify topics of interest and areas of consumer engagement, it gives us the ability to initiate new programming efforts. So recently we launched a slate of vertically targeted programs that were aimed at women, and within that we launched some shows that were driven largely off of the data that we could see within our Yahoo consumer environment. So we know, for example, that people click heavily into stories about wedding proposal stories within our women's slate of programs that we launched last fall. There's a show about the ultimate wedding proposals. Same thing around dating and relationships. We know that women on Yahoo want to know, why do men cheat? And so within our love and relationship show, one of the topics that we cover is about why do men cheat. So we use the data to inform programming that we can launch that we know will resonate with the audience that we already have.
Sounds like an interesting show on why men cheat. Jeff, the data from Facebook's perspective, obviously you guys are collecting an enormous amount of data, data on friends, data on brands, data on what you like, or for that matter, what you don't. How is data coming into the creation of content as you guys move more into content distribution and, for that matter, some development down the road?
I think it's very important. Understanding what people like and enjoy clearly can influence the type of content you can serve back. And I think it's from a brand standpoint, getting the permission from the user to go ahead and ask them, for their likes and interests and things that they actually do on the graph, and then you providing some social utility back, I think is really important. And I think, not an example that's a little bit out of this industry, but I think that's relevant is that with something that we've worked on recently with American Express around sort of asking them, giving users the opportunity to actually give them their likes and interests, but then actually surface back meaningful offers and experiences that are actually based upon what you like and enjoy, I think is relevant. So I think if you're able to provide a strong social utility, I think back to a user, I think it's okay to ask for that permission to get understanding of what their graph information, their likes and interests actually are on the graph.
Jared, are you using data at all outside of Q scores to really work with your clients on talent?
Nothing at all. No, we actually do, but and it's funny enough, we've gone away from the whole Q score, call it, I guess, analytical based insights, and actually utilizing more of the Yahoo and Facebook based platforms. The first thing we actually do is go into the entire social media atmosphere in which that celebrity is living and find out exactly how consumers are responding to that person. And really it's more qualitative. Of course, it's, we know about the number of friends they may have or the number of impressions that they're putting out in that social media universe. And we really use that as the trigger to determine who the best fit for a brand might be. And I know we'll talk about it later, but we also use it as how we base compensation on securing those celebrities as well. So I would say 80% of the time, we're actually looking a lot more into the Facebooks and the Yahoos of the world than we are even the whole Q score Nielsen-based analytics.
So the number of friends or their social graph is playing into the compensation model?
Yeah, in a tremendous way. I would say over the last 3 or 4 years, now we're looking at doing deals where we will set a platform or a watermark based upon the imprint that celebrity has in the social media universe, and the contract will be a partnership and will incentivize both the brand and the celebrity to increase that footprint. And so as that person grows from, call it 500,000 friends to 5 million friends, we'll actually pay them on those clicks. And what we believe is that it incentivizes the brand to actually support that partnership with the celebrity in utilizing their own media, and in which, by the way, they'll be buying these platforms to support the media, but at the same time, it's showing the celebrity that we're truly their partner and increasing their footprint, because at the end of the day, they want to have a larger position in that social media footprint. So if we're able to support that, incentivize them to build it, then everybody wins at the end of the day.
Jeff, are you seeing a similar model with some of the artists that you guys have within your stable on the monetization of their social reach?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's a combination. I'm in a unique position where we work directly with a lot of the brands. And on the brand side, one client we work a lot with is Nivea. And today, more than ever, I've never seen it where the first question is, what is the number of followers that artist has? What is the Facebook numbers that they have? How many tweets, what does that look like in a following? And that becomes more important than it does how many tickets they may have sold, how many albums they sold, what their singles may be. They care more about the digital and the following of that audience than they do about maybe some of the other standard statistics that in past, especially at Universal, we used to always look at. From an artist perspective, it's funny because, today you have artists who are a little bit old school, and you don't really necessarily feel, they don't feel that they necessarily have to work against building that data. And today, especially with the new artists, that's the first thing they work on. I mean, before they even have a song, they're out there talking about how they can build the numbers up and build that following up. So I think the old school is starting to follow the new school and really focus again how that's going to become a monetization tool for them and the brands.
A lot of content today is starting to find its way cross-platform, and there's discussion around transmedia. Again, there's another term, cross-platform, multi-platform. I think we as an industry have really bastardized a lot of these words over time. But I want to touch on transmedia for a second here, because I find transmedia to be a fascinating opportunity for producers out there. And I don't necessarily know, outside of a J.J. Abrams or a Tim Kring, whether there's a lot of producers that have really embraced transmedia to its true extent. But are any of you right now seeing, either artists or across your platforms, opportunities where content, both in a linear lean back, here's the show, and nonlinear lean in, here's an opportunity to extend those stories, Are you seeing that as a trend in terms of what clients are looking or for that matter, how consumers are engaging with shows through social networks and other platforms?
So out at CES this year, we met with a long list of brands, and virtually everybody wanted to talk about one thing, which was an underwhelming roster of new technology developments. So the rollout of new products, I think, was not necessarily as impressive as in years past, but everybody wanted to talk about the interconnectivity of devices and the ability for people, for the ease of which or with which consumers can now choose the platform on which they want to have an experience with a given piece of content. And one of the things we're doing to fuel that, and one of the things that advertisers are absolutely interested in, is the ability to pull people, whether it's out of a linear experience into an interactive experience, or the other way around, to find ways to light up that social engagement. And one of the things that that Yahoo and Facebook are doing together is leveraging the social graph and your network of friends in really interesting ways that allow you to be watching television, and whether it's through our connected TV product or through our Into Now product, which is essentially listening to the audio feed of the television programming you're watching and understanding what you're watching and connecting that out to a network of friends and allowing you new ways to understand who else is watching and to have conversations with them and to engage on a more deeper level with the brand and the programming itself. Those are proving to be really compelling for brands that are looking for new ways to take advantage of those developments in technology and that ease of which consumers can go back and forth between devices.
You know what? No, it's ironic, but if you look at what network television is or not doing, I should say, and what producers are doing, it's an amazing divide. You see, in our world, we're being pitched all the time from producers, content developers who are producing real TV shows that are also developing these transmedia platforms for their shows that they get to own. And actually the talent inside the shows get to own them as well. And the networks haven't even been looking at that platform to monetize. And what's so frustrating from a brand point of view, if there's any network executives in the audience, is they come and they try to sell still the CPM and the GRPs based upon a TV show. Yep. And based upon an audience that's dwindling. And then when you talk about the transmedia piece, like, well, what else are you going to do, on the web? It's kind of like a grin and a sigh, and they introduce you to like their head of digital sales, inside the network. Whereas what's refreshing for us, and what I'm encouraging our brands to do more of, is to talk directly to the producers and the agents and the managers that represent those teams, because they actually get it, and they are developing these properties that are linear in the sense that they all connect to the actually end result of that, whatever the TV show might be, but you get so much more as a brand out of everything that leads up to that finish line that it almost makes sense to direct your buys and the investment of your money into the producer and the content development, and then these platforms to exploit it, than the TV show itself. At the end of the day, you're getting tenfold in the social platform with the producer and developing content that's less expensive and actually more potent than the TV show itself. So it's ridiculous. And I would love to see networks embrace the idea of a producer producing more than just a TV show, pay them to do more, and get the brands involved in the beginning as opposed to the end when it makes no sense at all.
So it's really about building rather than borrowing.
Exactly, which we've been preaching for a long time, but they really still tend to ignore it.
Jeff?
No, and I think that, I think where we've seen success sort of dovetail off of that is really, whether it's in content or any of our partners we work with, is really sort of, looking at things, with social from the beginning and actually having it baked in versus sort of looking at it as an afterthought, trying to figure out what is my social strategy after I've already developed this piece of content. I think if you're thinking of it, with social at the core, or sort of social by design at the beginning, and thinking about how are people going to engage with this piece of content, why are they going to want to share it out with their friends, or why are they going to care about what we're creating, I think then you can create a more compelling experience that really does light up the graph, really gets your friends to actually go ahead and discover things through their friends themselves.
But I think to bring it back to the data conversation we were having earlier, I think it all starts with understanding who is most likely to respond to a particular type of programming, right? So you think about one programming asset, if you develop that intelligently, you know who your audience is going to be, and then you not only have a plan for activating and extending and promoting out across the social graph, but actually integrate that in with smart technology. One of the things we've pushed out is the ability for you to opt in to share the things that you're consuming on our network automatically out to your friend networks. And what that does for us as a programmer is it gives us the ability to be smart about what we're programming, to identify our core fan base, and then to intelligently leverage that knowledge and that smart programming decision out across an efficient promotional network, your friends. And what we're finding is that as that product starts to roll out, it's just more and more and more effective at helping us build audience against the programming that we invest in.
And when you do that, I assume that that's really where we hit the cultural aspect of content, right? And you sort of cross that chasm into something that has cultural currency or cultural relevance out there, right? Because as the consumer starts to act as marketer on behalf of brand or on behalf of property, that's really where we catch that wave. I mean, can any of you give an example of something that, you know, started very small and then grew through the social graph versus, say, an Arrested Development or other shows that were about to get canceled by the networks, and sure enough, socially, you know, their fans gathered together and caused Family Guy to basically continue. And I think that's working backwards, where the networks were not so in tune with the audience, and subsequently, you know, we're just looking at a rating number rather than a core base of consumer. But has there been anything that sort of has grown organically the other way?
Trying to think of a good, I think of a good example first organically, in that no sort of inertia before, but nothing that I can think of sort of like organically, you know, through just the word of mouth, you know, at scale that way. But I think when brands actually go ahead and invest behind it a little bit,
Yep.
and there actually is a little bit of inertia that's created, and actually seeing it from your friends, we have had, I think, some success. I think something recently, and it's something that's existed before, but I think we've seen a lot more success with the engagement with the program recently, is with the People's Choice Awards that actually just went ahead and aired most recently. They completely reframed how everyone to go about the voting experience, and all of it actually lived with on Facebook this prior year. And, you know, through your friends, discovering shows and the artists and the you know, actors and actresses through your friends, and actually voting on you know, from them via Facebook, and discovering who your friends voted for from the application and from your friends themselves, you know, generated millions and millions of more votes, you know, versus previous years. So it's something that, you know, that discovering, you know, that social utility, discovering it through your friends actually did generate a heck of a lot more engagement for the brand, you know, prior to the airing of the award show.
Got it.
We had an experience recently where we aired a concert event. It was live at the Hollywood Bowl, featured some big-time talent, Usher and Bono and the Edge and Lady Gaga, and we did almost 1 million live streams against that particular show. But one of the things that happened in the course of the event was that Usher had a wardrobe malfunction. He ripped his pants in a dance move that I'm not personally capable of replicating, so I won't try. But in part because of the ability for people to distribute that content socially, by the time it was all said and done, we had more than 20 million video streams against the content that we produced from that event. And I think it just speaks to the ability to drive kind of downstream value from a particular content asset by taking advantage of the social network and the ability to promote that out to a larger and larger network of people.
Was it the front or the back?
It was front.
Was it the front?
It was the front, but it was
sure we can
clean.
pull it.
It
That's
was
a whole other
safe.
channel.
Don't go back and watch it. Nothing to see here.
Wow.
Should we try and pull it up?
Yeah, if you can.
Jeffrey, you work closely with brands and aligning them with artists. Obviously, you know, you tend to see brands in the past sponsor tours based on the cultural relevance of an artist. So it's moving from culture into what the brand believes to be the relationship it wants contextually with that audience. And then a lot of times the brand is attempting to create content. So rather than going content to context to culture, you know, the brand tends to work backwards, which is always frustrating to ad guys like us, you know, that really want to move the brand in a different direction versus what they believe to be right based on a billboard number per se. But the relationship that you're seeing with brands coming to you, are they looking for deeper relationships with the artist than just headline on the tour or you know, or placement in a music video? Are there more sophisticated deals being done out there?
I mean, I think brands feel they're getting there, but I still think they're a long way off. Brands would come, and I heard the last panel someone mention innovation, that I want to use the word because we all seem to be innovating. I mean, brands feel that that's what they're doing, but in fact, they're really just putting another, if you would, dress on the same pig. I mean, it's just the idea that brands really want to focus on what they think is the right direction with digital, and especially following, let's say, what the Facebook numbers may be, but they don't really understand why, right? They don't get the relevance, and that right there is the rub with the artist. Because when you talk about culture, you got to be organic, and you got to fit where it makes sense for both the brands, being the artist brand as well as whatever that brand may be. And a lot of times we have a situation now with an artist where they want you to tie yourself into put, let's say, a message out to promote a Groupon coupon that they put in the market. Well, it's crazy. And I mean that today's fans, from an artist perspective, are transparent. They see right through this. So how credible at the end of the day is that going to be for that artist and what they're, quote unquote, selling out on? Equally, when you have the brand, they're going to quickly realize they're getting a false response. And they're not getting the response they're looking for. So yes and no. I mean, yes, brands are hungry for it, but no, they're not there. And no, they're not understanding how to get there because it doesn't fit within the house that they built. And they don't understand how to build the extension to that house so it works.
You know what? No, one of the challenges, though, is, and Jeff, and I'm going to critique your former employer. One of the problems is, though, that when you work with the labels, they immediately hit you up with all these costs from publishing costs, sync rights, all these BS costs that make it virtually impossible for a brand to truly get behind an artist. I mean, you know this. We've worked together. We've tried to do deals with artists that are baby bands, and we're willing to put millions of dollars behind an artist and support them in a huge way. And when the deal is at the finish line, all of a sudden we get a phone call for $1 million for BS costs. And I think part of the problem is that the labels, as you said, and obviously as you recognize because you left to do your own thing, is that these labels are antiquated. And they go back to the same models of just trying to put more money in their pockets because they're losing it from iTunes. And so I think that what we all need to do is continue to pressure the system so that they understand at the end of the day, we're all trying to sell something, right? The artist is trying to sell more music, the label's trying to sell more music, we're trying to sell more cosmetics, whatever it might be. So if we can all work together to achieve that goal, whether it's incentivizing everybody on the back end of success, let's go for it. But they're very short-sighted, and they still are. I don't see them changing at all, even after the entire debacle with iTunes. They have not changed their ways.
I agree. No, I mean, again, I don't want to get into a whole publishing conversation, but clearly I'm frustrated in the sense that, because I work tons of brands all day long, and my business partner is a publisher. And to your point, he has, probably 9,000 pieces of content that no one in this room has ever heard of.
Right.
And frankly, should look at the opportunity to really market that in the right way and use and leverage a brand's opportunity to get it out there. But they're naive, they're ignorant, they want to get the paycheck because they feel they put money up to own that content, so they want to somehow recoup it. From an artist perspective, and just where I think it also needs to be is on both sides, from the brand perspective, you got to open up more because the brands themselves are still very much stymied on what they feel they can and not do within that culture. And they want so desperately bad to be the cool kid on the block, but at the same time they're not willing to play to be cool. Mm-hmm. And they want to try to make themselves cool without really understanding how to get there.
That's true.
Anybody else want to weigh in on the antiquated publishing model that we have? Well, on that, I want to turn to the antiquated network model that we have. We talked a little bit about network television, and as I mentioned to you guys, recently I've been out there talking to clients and at conferences giving a presentation on the end of television as we know it. Not to say that television is dead by any means, but with the advent of smarter TVs, tablets that listen to what I'm watching, as well as a move away from scheduled and tremendous numbers that I'm sure we're all very familiar with into the world of on-demand, the behavior of the consumer is shifting tremendously. And it is my belief that television will collapse pretty much with the web, and the screen in our living room will talk to our tablet, which will talk to our smartphone, both of which are only as smart as the user themselves. But in essence, content will be programmed by me based on where my interests lie, really driven off of context, giving rise to what is culturally relevant and what is not. How do you see, first and foremost, the emergence of smart TVs, and a lot of the stuff that was shown at CES by Samsung and LG and Sony? How do you see that changing the storytelling landscape? What's going to happen out there in terms of producers that were traditionally producing for a half an hour block, 22 minutes, or an hour block, right? And how will they need to modify the way that they approach story and character development? And I know it's a little bit off of sort of the expertise we have here, but I think it's with the audience and this conference, it's a discussion that needs to be had, because no one's really having it out in Hollywood. And I don't necessarily know that consumers are, especially young consumers today, are going to be leaning back just, waiting for, characters to come on screen to give them comedy. I think that they're going to look for more engagement through a Yahoo, through a Facebook, with music talents or with brands directly. So I think it all, relative to the ecosystem, fits together. And I'd like to get your perspective on sort of what we can look forward to in the future as an opportunity.
I think bad TV is dead. The idea that you could just shoot bad content and put it up on any one of 500 channels and hope you build audience, that notion will fade pretty quickly, because devices are being designed in such a way that it's easy for me as a consumer. Look, I'm in the industry, but it's easy for my mom as a consumer to figure out where she can have a content experience anytime. Whatever content she wants, it's easy for her to pull up, whether that's on an iPad or on a television. What's going to happen is you're going to see that ease of experience. And what has been easy about television is you hit the remote, you turn it on, and you watch a show. Now all of a sudden it's going to be easy for you to select a program that you really want to watch. And so if you're producing bad content, I think that's over. I think it's going to be much, much easier for people to control that on-screen experience, whether that's controlling it through apps that are resident on the TV, and bring more richness of content right to your television set. Your TV will easily hop on your Wi-Fi network. It'll give you access to everything you want. Or whether you control that from a device that's sitting in your lap while you're having a lean-back experience on the couch. You'll be able to control what you see on air from your iPad. And the advancements that are happening, we announced some of those at CES this year. That's exciting. It's exciting for consumers because it means you'll be able to watch what you want exactly when you want. It'll be very, very easy to do. And it's exciting for brands because they'll have better data about what people are responding to and be able to target people with data in much the same way they've been able to target audiences on the web.
Jeff?
And I think, and I think the great thing about content in general is that, and it's true to the ethos of what Facebook is about, it really does represent your identity and who you are. The content you consume really does represent yourself, both offline and online. And I think, to get to a place, I think where Andrew is going now is, being able to actually consume the things that matter through the people that matter. So discovering content and shows through your friends and seeing what they're actually watching, and getting into a place where I flip on my TV and it's already recorded this show because 3 of your friends have actually watched it before. So this is something we think you might be interested in. Actually discovering and seeing what Andrew's watching, even though he lives, 5 states away, and be able to click into that conversation, actually have an experience with them and actually talk and discuss and see it, real time, I think is an interesting way to go, and discovering and actually sort of, communicating with your friends during that actual content experience, I think can be really important. And I think also, to your point of bad content is dead, I think there's a great opportunity now to, launch content and iterate more quickly, because the immediate sort of reaction and engagement you get with fans and people through the social graph give the opportunity to sort of collect that data and then optimize sort of what you create in real time, I think, in a more efficient manner.
Jared, when you have a sync device and somebody's sitting there on their couch and the tablet is syncing with the show, whether it be a live music event like the Grammys, whether it be a cooking show, hopefully not Paula Deen, but another, someone else who's not in that situation, credible-wise. Is that an opportunity for a brand to come in and create content on top of the content that, in essence, follows that same story or borrows some of that equity? And do you see brands being able to do just that, to bring that quality of content up to the same level that the producers are putting out?
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity there. I think that at the end of the day, and I know you believe this too, is that it's got to be great content. I don't think brands want to start getting into the production business, and I think that what we try to do is we could try to encourage the brand to actually work with producers and story creators that know what they're doing and actually do that for a living versus a brand manager to try to create a storyline. So at first, I think it's very important for the brand to understand the essence of good content. And if they understand that, then yes, I think that opportunity of when a consumer is engaging, and whether it's during the streaming process or downloading process, or it's when it's, as you talked about, that lean back period, it's a great opportunity for a brand to be that catalyst to some great content. Especially, Doug, you had brought up a little while ago how nothing is free anymore in the world of content, right?
Yep.
Television, we pay cable bills. And if a brand could actually get into that, that sweet spot of providing something at a reduced cost, or something added to what the cost is to that consumer, then I think they'll win. And it's a huge opportunity for brands to get involved at this. But having said that, it's not a commercialized message. It's a real fun, integrated piece of content that the consumer can latch on to. So I think it's a huge opportunity, but it takes some really smart marketers and producers to make the content that works.
I want to just touch briefly on this idea of culture, because we've talked a little bit about content. Obviously, context is driven off of the data. But this idea of culture, what is culturally relevant, what is not, who defines culture, and how is something defined to be, part of the cultural fabric that we're in? I mean, a large part of it has to do with what people are talking about. I think a large part of it is driven by media and the media cycles that are out there, and those are shifting significantly. Jeffrey, over to you for a second, because as I mentioned earlier, music is to me, probably the most, it's got the closest proximity to everything around us. You get in a car, there's music. You get in an elevator, there's bad music. Everybody's carrying around music. It's ubiquitous to some degree. Are you seeing this evolution within the music industry relative to how to create an act and you really use a brand? There was an article recently I read in Billboard that in essence TV is the new radio, right? And it's no longer about record spins on radio. It's about music in TV shows, and I think a lot of the work that has been done on Grey's Anatomy, for instance, they've done a phenomenal job breaking artists, and that transcends culture in a way in which people hear it and then they want it, right? And years ago when I worked with Doug Lyman Hypnotic on the OC, at the end of the OC, Warner Brothers would put up the album cover and drive people specifically to that single. Do you see that opportunity arising in the digital space as well for artists in terms of starting to integrate music more into some of the shows that are getting play within those digital channels?
I do, but it's funny because I think from an artist perspective, they still want that Super Bowl TV spot, right? That to them is the enchilada that they're looking for. So it's funny when you talk to brands and you look at the artist side of digital, and the fact that you may license some content or do a relationship where you're going to be through a webisode series, the interest level is like, and frankly, if you're a level, B level type of artist, from a management perspective, a lot of times if that's the look, unless the check is the right look, it's almost of no interest to that artist, right? Where if you look the opposite, going back to what I said before, if you have the younger emerging developing artist who cares more about the Facebook numbers and cares more about their Twitter following than they do about anything of a single or music, they get that right away. So there is a little bit, I think, of interest from a brand wanting to do that, but I still think from an artist participation, it has to be laid in layers. It has to have multiple dimensions, especially at a high level, if it's going to be relevant, if it's going to make sense, if it's going to have an impact. But I think going back to your first point, being culture, I think what I think is absolutely true is brands are resonating to whether it be celebrity or artists or combined because they want to build off of that brand, that artist's DNA. they want to leverage off of and get the cool aspect and the cool effect of that. So I think, there have been, Jared and I worked on with his team back in Universal, try to create a branded record label, driven by a packaged goods company. So from a digital perspective, absolutely. I think that there's more interest every day wanting to find that wow statement, that breakthrough, and create, using certain assets to really create the next opportunity and vehicle to really launch into that artist's career. And I do also think that the higher level artists are starting to see that, and if there's an opportunity that makes sense, they're probably more open than they were maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, I think that artists absolutely lend to the cultural ethos of a consumer's behavior. I think, we've been in focus groups where there have been people to say, I don't do anything that a celebrity tells me to do. Yet at the same time, they're wearing, Michael Jordan sneakers. And I think that it's not about, whether it's Jersey Shore or whether it's Paula Deen or whether it's Michael Jordan, I think that people tend to like to be inspired and, in a way, not directed but influenced. And they like to have somebody at least telling them it's okay to buy a certain product. And I think what's great about celebrity, and by the way, to define celebrity nowadays can be anybody who lives just on the web to somebody who has a huge motion picture. And actually, I'd even argue that those that live on the web are more influential than those that are in huge motion pictures. I think Tom Cruise probably has less influence on what most people in this room are going to buy versus probably some people that appear on Facebook and Yahoo. And so what's great about today's culture is that celebrities are born every minute. Because the definition of celebrity is just somebody who resonates to a consumer in any way. And so we love working with celebrities. We love putting together platforms with brands and with celebrities because it really works. It really starts to spread the word of mouth based upon product assets and brand assets in the right way that can control, but also at the same time lends its halo effect to consumers so that they believe in something without you having to show testimonials on a television commercial. And I think that's just going to continue to grow. And I think that the deals that are going to be structured now between the two are going to be more creative and more incentivized on both sides.
Great.
One thing that I think is going to happen is you're going to see a globalization of culture, too. I mean, one of the things the internet does is make it easy for content creators and brands to push messages out to 700, 800 million people around the world very, very quickly. And so I'm interested to see what happens as that continues to proliferate, as people start to understand the opportunity that's represented there. How quickly does culture and cultural trends spread on a global basis as we start to kind of coordinate our efforts around that?
Yeah, I agree.
Questions from the audience? Any questions? Not one? Yes, sir. There's mics right up front if you wouldn't mind coming up. Just let us know who you are and who you're with.
Hello, everybody. I'm Stuart Musinski from Purple America, and I have a question about culture. We're talking about culture as, being the culture that's out there that then is incorporated in broadcast media. But what about the any kind of commitment or any kind of purpose that media has, that agencies have, that media companies have, and that iconic brands, such as Yahoo and Facebook have, to shape the American culture? Tonight the president's going to be talking about American values. So what is the obligation that a Yahoo and a Facebook, among other iconic brands, have to shape American values and put American values out there?
Good question. It's funny. We work with Procter & Gamble a lot, and they talk about purpose-driven brands. And I think that, you have brand. I think we'd be surprised on the brand side about how many brands actually do give back to, as you talk about, the responsibility of being American brands. And you could actually say that about global brands in general, about giving back to the global need.
Yeah. Smuckers is another example.
Exactly. I used to work with Smuckers in my gray days. They do a great job at that. And some tout it, some talk about it a lot, and some don't. And so I think it's hard. The challenge I think we all have is that my point of view is that I think brands should talk about what they do towards change and towards the whole social responsibility platform. But The problem I have, and I'm curious if you have the same issue, is don't use it, though, to exploit the brand in a marketing sense. You know, don't use underprivileged opportunities as a platform to market your brand. I have an issue with that. I have an issue with utilizing health issues or poverty issues to put yourself on a pedestal. I think it's in bad taste. I think that allow consumers to understand what you do on a social responsibility platform by seeping it out with the correct channels. And I think if you do it that way, it's the responsible way to do it, and the way that resonates the best with consumers at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you.
I think from the point of view of a media company, it's obviously a huge responsibility. And one of the things we're doing with the election this year is really digging into the issues that affect Americans, not in a red or a blue way, but really to focus on the issues that affect people within their homes and
in a purple way.
In a purple way, exactly.
That's right.
And in our case,
now I
it's
get it.
very appropriate.
Blue.
Well, what we're doing is highlighting the real issues that affect people in the home, and instead of taking a right or a left spin on it, relying on the storytelling that we can evoke from the issues as they affect those families, but then also extend that out to our larger community of 180 million Americans who come to our site every month and involve them in the discussion and help people out of whatever challenges they face. Essentially use the spirit of community that's fueled by sites like Facebook and Yahoo as well to change the conversation and to help people and to develop something that's much more positive and that's focused less on tearing one side or the other apart and really developing a different spirit of community and collaboration. I think it's a big opportunity and something that we're embracing for the election cycle.
So you're really more seeing yourself as a catalyst in that regard.
Absolutely.
How about Facebook?
And I think, our mission as a company is to make the world more open and connected, right? That's what we really want to try to do. So fundamentally, we are a platform that enables any and all conversations to happen, and 800 million people, large, there to have those conversations and be heard in an authentic and valuable way. So that's really, what we're there to do is, enable these and have these happen. We're a platform that really makes that happen.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cindy Laird, and I have a question about social media in terms of a responsibility to the public that it serves. I make my living largely on my image as a performing artist, and I have a Facebook account, and I was found by people I hadn't seen in years because some toothpaste company was circulating my picture as an advertisement on Facebook, and not a picture that I was selling or anything. It was a picture from a headshot. What is Facebook, Yahoo, MySpace, what are they doing to protect consumers' rights?
I mean, as far as, I'm not sure in your specific instance, but I think as far as what we hold privacy, obviously very near and dear to what we do, and anything that we do is from the consent from you as a user. So we want to make sure that we hold that, near and dear to everything that we do as far as any messages that are potentially, used from an advertising standpoint. I'm not quite sure, in that instance. It may have been a scenario where if you've liked the brand, so I'm making it up in the scenario that it could have been Aquafresh, and you've liked Aquafresh, and that's an action that you actually have taken. You like this brand represents who you are and what you do. That message can be then broadcast out to your friends and only your friends as far as who will be able to see that message as far as you do actually enjoy Aquafresh or have liked that brand. And it's the same message that would actually funnel down in your news feed that your friends would see that that is that instance. So I'm not quite sure in the in the example as far as what happened there, but we consumer privacy and user privacy is near and dear to everything that we do, and we do everything to make sure that not brands cannot leverage your likeness or anything without your consent.
I don't think it's an issue with Facebook. Yeah, I think it's an issue with the brand. I think you should get yourself a lawyer and talk to the brand about utilizing your face rights in a way that wasn't approved. I mean, you must have beautiful teeth. So seriously, get yourself a lawyer and talk to the brand directly, and get yourself some residuals.
I mean, I got a note from Facebook that said, "Oh, we're sorry, we found this happened," and then it disappeared. But that was all.
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue with these guys. I think it's an issue with the brand. Find out, honestly, contact the brand through a third party and get yourself a check.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, I'm Laura Shepard. I represent a Fortune 500 company who's interested in getting in the space for the baby boomer generation. And I'm wondering, hearing all of this with the social connectivity and the trends, how well is the entertainment industry responding to this huge growing segment, do you think?
I think it's a big, big opportunity. It's been a priority for us as well. At Yahoo, we actually created a program in partnership with General Mills that was designed to connect with boomers who are reinventing themselves in the second act of their lives, staying fit, staying healthy, tempting their biggest fears, and really, truly reinventing themselves. The programming that we created with them lives on Yahoo. It reaches a very large audience. And that program's been nominated for an Emmy Award. So we take it seriously. I think there's a big, big opportunity, not just on our property, but across the web, to develop integrated programs that connect with any number of audiences, but boomers clearly being a priority.
Anyone else want to add on that? Well,
No, I think, from a brand point of view, I think that we're really excited about the embracement, the engagement and the embracing of entertainment with the world of social media. I think that it's only going to help. As we talked about before, we're so frustrated about the limited audiences that we're getting with traditional media that, I predict next year at this time, at this conference, even 2 times the amount of money that's being spent, 5 times the amount of money that's being spent in this way will go to this direction. And who knows? I mean, I find it interesting that NATPE now, the majority of the conversation is all about the whole digital distribution side, as opposed to, as you said, the traditional TV side. Pretty amazing.
And if I could just add one thing to that, on the entertainment side, from the talent perspective, that demographic is probably one of the hardest, from an artist perspective especially, to try to reach. It's the adult contemporary in our world, if you would. And the radio stations have pretty much dropped off the map. So the artists of that caliber of a 35-plus demographic are really looking for new mediums, which is where the social platform comes into play and becomes a big vehicle. But equally, a brand becomes a huge vehicle. So the younger, everyone talks about younger artists being really, where the money may be. But it's the 35-plus demographic, which is probably a huge array of talent, from the Lionel Richies all the way down to maybe artists you don't know, all looking for that opportunity. So if you have those type of things, you probably have a lot to look at from a talent perspective.
So with that, I'd like to thank my panelists for a great session on content, context, and culture, and all of you for attending. Thank you.